Let's bring in now infectious diseases expert, Professor Paul Griffin. Paul, thanks so much, Professor, as always, for your time. I want to start with your assessment of the risk from AstraZeneca for those under 40, because we saw this indemnity provided from National Cabinet. I know anecdotally and from the peak bodies we've heard from as well, there's been a rush of younger Australians going out to get the jab. I've been looking at the risk factor. It's 3 in 100,000 of risk of the clots, and then beyond that, whether or not it's a serious case or so on, it becomes even more rare. Are you happy with this shift to get more young people out there and getting the jab quickly?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what we've seen in terms of this changing advice is a response to the evolving situation around us. When the recommendation was made to prioritise Pfizer in people less than 60, there was very little COVID around, so very low risk of anyone having any serious consequences from COVID. But that risk has changed. So we know throughout that the benefits of this vaccine still outweigh the risks, but they were a little bit higher in those younger people, which is why that advice changed. But now the risks from COVID have gone up significantly. So I certainly do welcome this advice. And as you're alluding to, the risk is very rare of this clotting syndrome, and the vast majority of people recover fully. We're much better at recognising it. We're much better at managing it. So I think this is a good recommendation. And of course, if people still have concerns, they should discuss with their GP or vaccine provider.
So 3 cases per 100,000 under 50, and then just a reminder: if you're over 60 or 70, that becomes only less than 2 cases per 100,000. And as you said, our medical professionals have also become much more effective in picking up the condition and at treating it very, very effectively.
That's right. So early on, I guess there were concerns the mortality or the bad outcomes from that clotting syndrome might be as high as 20 or 30%. But, more recently it would appear that, the really bad outcomes probably occur in say, less than 5%. So even if you're one of the very few unlucky people to get that clotting syndrome, the vast majority of people will recover fully with the therapies that we're using at the moment. So I think on balance, this is a good recommendation we've seen overnight.
And we've seen, as I said, a rush of younger people wanting to get out there and get the jab. Are you surprised by that, or does that sit with your own professional experience that those younger people that you've engaged with are more open to getting vaccinated? Now they've got access, they'll take it up?
I think there's a big spectrum. I mean, there's been a lot of changes in the messaging, so some genuine confusion and concern out there. But, we're obviously seeing the impact of having a very low rate of vaccination in the community in terms of what can happen, particularly with this Delta strain. So I think a lot of people recognise our way through that, our way forward, and to minimise the impact of these sort of cases in the community is to have people vaccinated. So I think it's great that we've seen an increase recently, and, we just need to sustain that to get enough people vaccinated.
Are you comfortable with the decisions you've seen? Let's start in Queensland, your home state, with the decision to lock down.
I think so. I mean, we have a few concerning cases in the community, including with the Delta strain, and, we brought in masks and other restrictions first. So, I think with those new cases, it makes sense. Obviously the expectation will be that we get on top of it quickly and can release that lockdown as planned on Friday.
And as you look around the nation, your overall assessment of the situation, because a couple of weeks ago we spoke, there were no community transmission cases. Now we look at little outbreaks, little clusters in a number of jurisdictions.
Yeah, I think we're certainly in a very precarious position right now. We've seen some cases, particularly in people that have been mobile and spread these to a number of parts of the country. And we need to do our best to get on top of that very quickly. What's clear is we would like to not have to rely on lockdowns and border restrictions, but our rate of vaccination simply is not at that point yet. So I think for now, at this point in time, it makes sense to go hard and go early and try and contain things. But I also think we need to remind people that the way forward is to get that vaccine rolling so that perhaps in a few months we'll have enough people vaccinated that these sort of responses become a thing of the past.
And what number do we get to where that's the case, Professor Griffin?
There's no simple number. In isolation, if we use no other mitigation strategies in parallel, it's probably in the order of 70 or 80%, but that's going to be very difficult to achieve. But if we combine high rates of vaccination with some other simple mitigation strategies like high rates of testing and isolating people that are positive, maintaining some social distance and hand hygiene and all of those things, then that number is potentially a little bit less. But I think what's clear is we have to aim for as many people vaccinated as possible so that we can protect the vulnerable and certainly look to move beyond the sort of things we're dealing with at the moment.